Open this gate. Now, she barked, slamming her palm against the metal like she owned it. I didn't even live in her HOA. That was the point. I bought 50 acres outside their control. My land. My rules. But apparently my private road, which she'd been using as her shortcut for years, was suddenly community property. She shoved her phone in my face. I'm calling the board. You can't block my access. Behind her, her car idled on my posted land, trespassing without a shred of shame. The wind carried the rattling of the new lock, the one she was already planning to break. I smiled. Call whoever you want. And that was when her real meltdown began. Karen didn't back down. If anything, the locked gate flipped some internal switch that unleashed her full HOA fury. She stepped closer, heels grinding into the gravel. This gate violates easement code 14B, she snapped, waving a printed packet that looked like it had been stapled by rage alone. You can't block a public thoroughfare. I glanced at the sign I'd mounted less than an hour ago. Private road, no trespassing, not HOA property. It swayed gently in the breeze, mocking her. That road, I said, belongs to me. Bought it, surveyed it, recorded it at the county. Yesterday. Karen's mouth twisted.
Non. Impossible.
That road's been here for decades. We've always used it. And now you won't. Her nostrils flared so sharply she looked like a bull ready to charge. Then she did something that told me this wasn't going to be a one-time incident. She pulled out her phone and started live streaming. Everyone, look at this! She shrieked into the camera. New guy thinks he can block access to our community. This is a safety hazard. This is illegal. I watched her perform, circling her car like she was hosting a reality show meltdown. Neighbors began peeking out from the tree line of the HOA border behind her, drawn by her screeching like moths to a flame. The wind picked up, scraping leaves across the gravel. Perfect background noise for her chaos. Karen, one neighbor called nervously. I don't think that road is ours. Oh, shut up, Jeff, she snapped. You don't know anything about property law. I bit back a grin. If only she knew who actually did know something about property law. Instead, I said nothing. Calm was gasoline to her fire. Karen stomped closer, her phone still streaming. Open this gate or I'll get the sheriff out here. And trust me, he'll make you regret this. Funny thing, I had already called the sheriff that morning to confirm jurisdiction and to file a trespass notice just in case. She didn't know that yet. Karen marched to the side of the gate, inspected the hinges, then, unbelievably, tried to shove her entire weight against it. The steel didn't budge. She bounced back like a malfunctioning pinball, nearly dropping her phone. You're making this worse for yourself, she yelled. I crouched down and checked the lock, pretending to tighten a bolt that didn't need tightening. In reality, I was adjusting the small body camera clipped under my jacket, the one recording every second of her tantrum. Karen stormed back to her car, then accelerated into a dramatic three-point turn before speeding off toward the HOA entrance. But I knew she wasn't giving up. She was regrouping, and I was right. 20 minutes later, she returned, with reinforcements. 2 HOA board members, arms folded, a clipboard brigade, and one carrying a binder thick enough to be a weapon. This road, Karen announced triumphantly, is essential emergency access for our neighborhood. As board president, I order you to open the gate. I leaned on the fence. Board president of the HOA I don't belong to? The men shifted uncomfortably. Karen doubled down. We're filing a complaint with the county. This is harassment. I just smiled. Already spoke to them. Want the case number. Her face paled, but only briefly. She wasn't done. The board members stepped forward. Sir, cooperation would be easier for everyone. I looked them dead in the eye. I already cooperated. I bought the land. Karen's voice cracked with fury. You're going to regret crossing me. She didn't notice the quiet drone rising behind her, the one I'd launched to document HOA vehicles trespassing. She didn't notice the sheriff's truck turning onto the road, but I did. And when she finally saw who stepped out, that's when everything shifted. Sheriff Dalton stepped out of his truck with the same unhurried calm of a man who'd seen every kind of nonsense small towns had to offer. Boots hit gravel. Sunglasses stayed on. He took in the scene. Karen panting with indignation, HOA board members clutching binders like shields, me leaning against my gate like I'd been expecting him. Because I had. Karen ran toward him. Sheriff! Finally! Arrest him! He blocked our community road and is endangering public safety. Dalton lifted one eyebrow. That's so? She shoved her phone at him, replaying her live stream, voice shrill and triumphant. See?
Illegal gate.
He's trapping us. The sheriff didn't even look at the screen. Instead, he looked at me. Got the paperwork? I nodded and opened the small folder I'd tucked under my arm. He took it, glanced at the first page, and smirked. Karen's eyes narrowed. What is that? The sheriff held it up slightly. Official county survey. Filed 3 days ago. Confirms this entire road, every inch of it, belongs to him. The HOA board members stiffened. Karen's face went ghost white, then bright red, then a shade of purple I'm not sure exists in nature. That can't be right, she screamed. We've used this road for years. That makes it ours. Not how property works, the sheriff said, flipping the page. And according to this, it's been misused by your HOA for over a decade. The board members swallowed hard. Karen sputtered. I wasn't done. Sheriff, I said. There's more. I opened my truck door and pulled out a second file. Thicker, heavier, and beautifully damning. Karen stepped back like it was radioactive. What is that? I handed it to Dalton. Footage, timestamps, sworn statements from the previous landowner, and drone recordings of multiple HOA vehicles trespassing on private land, including, I pointed, hers. The sheriff flipped a page and whistled. Well, I'll be. This is thorough. Karen's voice cracked. You set us up. No, I said calmly. I documented what you were already doing. She trembled with rage. The board members looked like they wanted to melt into the trees. But the real twist was still coming. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out the final piece. A sealed envelope with a gold embossed stamp. Karen eyed it like it was a court summons, which, in a way, it was. Dalton opened it. His eyebrows shot up. Good news for you, he said, turning to Karen. Looks like the county just approved his petition. She blinked rapidly. Petition for what? I met her glare with steady calm. To revoke all historical easement claims on this road and officially designate it as a restricted access private driveway. Karen staggered back.
No.
No, you can't do that. I already did. But we need this road. The other entrance is a mile longer. It lowers our property values. That sounds like an HOA problem, I said. Not mine. Dalton shut the folder. Ma'am, unless you have a deed proving ownership, which you don't, this road is his. And continuing to use it now that you've been formally notified. He tapped the file. Is trespassing. Karen's voice shriveled. You're taking his side? Dalton finally took off his sunglasses. I'm taking the side of the law. She looked around wildly, desperate for backup. But her board members had already taken several guilty steps away from her. And one more thing, Dalton added. This gentleman here? He nodded at me. Used to teach legal compliance courses for the county. Knows the rules better than most attorneys. Karen's jaw dropped. I leaned in slightly. I told you I prepared. Her arrogance cracked cleanly down the middle. The power shift was instant, brutal, and beautiful. And she wasn't ready for what came next. Karen's bravado shattered like thin glass. She looked from the sheriff to the gate, then back to the HOA board members who were now pretending to be tourists in a foreign land. Suddenly fascinated by trees, sky, anything that wasn't her. No, this isn't fair, she whispered, voice trembling. You can't just cut us off. The county can, Dalton replied. And they did. Today. He folded the papers neatly and handed them back to me. If any of them come through this gate without your permission, call us. We'll handle it. The implication hit the HOA board members like a slap. Trespassing charges. Finis. Court hearings. Karen swayed where she stood. "This is going on record?" One of the board guys croaked. "It already is," Dalton said. The drone above hummed lightly as if emphasizing the point. Karen snapped. "This is your fault," she screamed at me, pointing with a shaking hand. "You could have been cooperative. You could have let us use it." "I could have," I agreed calmly. "But you tried to bully me instead." She lunged toward the gate again, like pure rage could break reinforced steel. "Didn't." She rebounded with a yelp, clutching her wrist as the board members rushed to steady her. Dalton sighed. "Ma'am, I strongly advise you to head home before you add resisting or vandalism to today's list." That got through to her. Barely. The board members escorted her back toward the HOA path, whispering urgently, their perfect suburban armor cracking with every step. Karen kept turning around, stunned, disbelieving, like the world had betrayed her personally. Before she disappeared around the bend, she delivered her final threat, breathless and pathetic. "You'll regret this. I'll take this to the state, to the governor." I didn't even respond. The slam of the gate lock clicking into place said more than words ever could. When the HOA group finally vanished, Dalton turned to me, grin forming. "That was a hell of a file you put together." "I figured I'd need it," I said. "People like that don't just stop." "Well," he tipped his hat. She stopped now. Then he paused, scanning the quiet forested path beyond the gate. "You mind if I used that footage for deputy training? That was some great HOA meltdown." I chuckled. "Be my guest." As his truck rumbled away, the land fell silent again. Peaceful, wide, mine. I walked the length of the fence line, checking the posts, the cables, the fresh private property signs. My kingdom of trees and sky. My freedom. And with every step, I felt something settling in my chest. Not just relief, but victory. Not petty vengeance, but earned justice. Karen had spent years barking orders and bending rules around her HOA like a tyrant. But today, her power collapsed for everyone to see. And it wasn't over. There was still what came after the dust settled, the part where life changed for good. The next morning, the land felt different. Not quieter. It had always been quiet out here, but clearer. Like the air carried less weight now that Karen's constant intrusion had finally been shut out. Sunlight filtered through the pines, striping the ground in warm gold. For the first time since buying the property, I walked my own road without expecting someone to burst out and demand something from me. Halfway down the trail, I stopped at the rise overlooking the HOA. Their neatly trimmed lawns and matching mailboxes looked tiny from up here, like a model village in a glass case. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance, freedom. I thought about why I bought the 50 acres in the first place. Not for a fight, not to prove anything, but to finally build a place that felt like mine. Something unbothered, untamed, unregulated. Place where I could breathe. Funny how people like Karen try to take even that. Later that week, the sheriff emailed me a short clip from his dash camera. Karen's meltdown framed perfectly, time-stamped. Her entitlement displayed like a museum piece. He added a note. "Rest assured, she won't be bothering you for a long time." I didn't gloat. Truth is, watching it made me feel something unexpected. Pity. Not for her actions, but for whatever emptiness made her need control so badly she'd try to seize what never belonged to her. But the world has a way of correcting its imbalances. The real emotional shift came when a small group of HOA neighbors visited the gate the following weekend. Not to fight, but to apologize. Jeff, the one she'd snapped at, stepped forward first. "We just wanted to say we're sorry. Most of us never agreed with how she handled things. She's been removed as HOA president." A woman behind him nodded awkwardly. "She overstepped. A lot. And we should have spoken up sooner." Their honesty surprised me more than any of the drama that came before. "It's okay," I said, and I meant it. "You're not responsible for her choices." One of the older neighbors looked at my land with quiet admiration. "Beautiful place you've got here. Must feel good owning something this peaceful. I glanced at the towering pines, the wide open fields, the long untouched road stretching like a promise. It does, I said softly. They left with relieved smiles, and I watched them disappear down the path. A reminder that not everyone in the HOA was an enemy. Some were just people caught in the blast radius of someone else's ego. That afternoon, I walked the boundary again, listening to birds echo through the trees. My trees, my sky, my space. For the first time in a long time, I felt the world unfolding instead of closing in. And as I stood by the gate that started it all, my gate, I realized the truth. I hadn't just blocked Karen out. I'd opened the door to everything I'd been trying to build: peace, independence, and the quiet certainty that this land, this life, finally belonged to me. The story didn't end with her defeat. It began with my freedom.